Hello, happy Valentine's Day, and today we're going to do a special Science Behind the Magic about love. This idea came from Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany. We were talking about in fantasy romance the trope of the mate, where the mating bond and everything is very prevalent, especially in fae stories, see Throne of Glass or ACOTAR are some that I've read, but I'm sure it's in many other supernatural romances. And we were talking about, is there cool science to dig out of that? And although I'm not here to tell you that there are soulmates and that you are a slave to your genetics, I do have some interesting things to talk about the science of love or the love response that you might give off. Now, this is primarily going to talk about some physiological effects, and no person is the same. I am not here to tell you how you sexually identify, if you are asexual or aromantic. I am not saying that these processes are not functioning well. That is actually not something we have a lot of research on. But these are just some of the things that scientists have noted and researched when they've done experiments either through MRI machines, etc. So here we are, we're going to talk about the science of love. What is your body doing when it's in love? Now, when we're talking about our body's response to love, we have to talk about hormones. And I'm sure when we first think of hormones, we think of teenagers and how hormonal they are. And yes, that's true. When you're becoming a teenager, your body is going through hormonal changes. But hormones are so much more than that. They are signaling molecules that help keep your body balanced in every regard in your life. So there are some hormones that you probably don't even know are hormones. So for instance, if you are diabetic or know someone who's diabetic, their sugar is typically regulated by the hormone insulin, and it's a problem with this regulation with insulin that leads to diabetes, whether it's that you're no longer responding to insulin or you're not producing insulin. This problem with insulin is the main core of why diabetes happens for people. Also, if you have trouble sleeping at night, I'm sure you have Googled somewhere to try melatonin because it's supposed to regulate your circadian rhythm. When the sun goes down, your body is supposed to produce more melatonin, which is how it will help you fall asleep at night. So both of those hormones have nothing to do with reproductive health or growth, because I feel like most of the time when I thought of hormones growing up, I thought of sex hormones, the hormones that are associated with maturity and growth. But it's so much more than that, and I just wanted to bring that up at the top of the video because as I was making my notes for this video, I realized I don't know how to really define what a hormone is, so I bet a lot of people don't know either. And if you did, you are ahead of me on that one. And now let's get into the parts of love that scientists have categorized into different hormonal responses. The first part we'll talk about is lust, that need to reproduce. This is governed by the traditionally thought of sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen. When both of these hormones are increased, our libidos are increased, and both sexes have both of these hormones. So this one's pretty easy. When these are increased, you are more likely to find yourself having that increased sex drive. You want to have sex, and this evolutionarily makes sense. Every species has a means of convincing its body to spread its genes. That's just the nature of being an animal on this planet. The next one is more complex and has some really cool tidbits, and that is attachment. So this involves the reward center of your brain. So this is the part of your brain that basically releases very happy chemicals when you do something it thinks is good. And it wants you to be attracted to someone because it wants you to then have lust for that person. Because again, it's all about you spreading your genes into the universe. And it also wants you to find, in its opinion, the best genetic match. Now, I'm not here to say, like I said, we're not slaves to our genetics, but there are some slight subconscious things that happen here. So like, for instance, there are these t-shirt studies. So if you were to give a group of people a bunch of t-shirts and to ask them which ones smell best to you, and it has, the odor of many different people, people typically like the smell of the shirts that are both slightly genetically similar, but also have very different immune systems. So the idea would be that they would have a kid with this person or procreate in some way, and that kid will have a more diverse immune system, which means it will survive more successfully in the world. But it still has some genetic markers that have already been tried and true without leading to any of that incestual stuff. So that's just one way in which through like pheromones, we subconsciously might be attracted to someone. There's also symmetry. People are very attracted to symmetry, and part of that is in our brain, symmetry means mutations are minimal. Everything is good. And that doesn't mean you end up with someone with the most beautiful face in the world. Like, we all have our people who we know are beautiful, and they usually have had a whole bunch of Photoshop done to them, but they are still very pretty on TV. I'm thinking of someone in particular that I find very attractive to look at, but that's really where the attraction stops. Because I think for me and many people, attraction is not just a physical response. There is a lot that goes into it, and that has to do with the reward center of the brain. When you find yourself becoming attracted to someone, even without these physical cues, maybe they make you laugh, maybe you just like being around them because they make you feel good. Will that make you feel good? That's the hormone dopamine, and dopamine is the hormone that makes you feel good. It's the hormone most associated with drug addiction because many drugs release dopamine in the brain. So love is a drug. Love releases very similar responses to drugs. When you are in love, dopamine is being released. And so is adrenaline. Adrenaline and dopamine are both being released when you are attracted to someone. And both of these hormones lead to you having less of an appetite and more likely to have insomnia, which basically means there is scientific backing for the fact that some people are so lovesick that they can't eat or sleep. Now, for me personally, it's never been that drastic. I've really liked people, but I love food. I can't imagine not loving food. But I think it's really funny that some of the more over-the-top romantic things that we see in the world do have basis in our hormonal responses. The last thing we'll talk about is attachment, and this is actually for lots of relationships, not just romantic. This is like parent-child relationships, this is familial relationships, friendships. Relationships are important. As a species, evolutionarily speaking, we do better when we have attachments. We tend to thrive when we have people in our communities that we work well with because there's support, we're more likely to survive. We're not very good solo creatures. And there actually are a couple hormones involved with this. We have oxytocin, which might be the incorrect pronunciation, but it's what I'm going with, and vasopressin. And the first one is actually called the cuddle hormone, and it's released during all sorts of events. It's released during an orgasm because it really wants you to bond with this person that you just had sex with, because they want you to form this bond after you have this kid so that you are a unit and you will survive. Again, evolution. But it also is released during breastfeeding because they want the mother and the kid to have a bond as well. So this is the bonding cuddle hormone. It is involved in attachment, and it's kind of similar to that reward center where it's this feedback loop that is positively reinforcing things that lead to maybe more fulfilling, lengthening relationships. That all said, love is not just science. We all know that. Love is also communication skills. It's also compatibility. And I think that happens a lot. I think there are plenty of people you could meet that are genetically great matches for you. You would have very genetically healthy children if you chose to procreate in whatever form you chose. But maybe you're not a good match mentally or emotionally. You might have different habits that they're just never gonna fit. But I thought this was really interesting to dig into. I'll have the articles linked down below in the description where I pulled some of this information from, so you can keep exploring more as you wish. And if you made it this far and just want me to know you're here, leave a heart emoji of your choice in the comments down below. Don't forget to check out the new public Discord, which will also be linked down below if you want to come chat about books and anything else. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.